go then.
Go. Feel like a bit of a newsreader this evening. Good evening, a huge thank you for joining us this evening. I hope that most of you know who I am, but if not, I'm Lynn Aitchison. I'm the head teacher at Tweedbank Primary School. I'm really excited to be with you all virtually tonight to introduce Phonics International. It's our new approach for teaching reading throughout Tweedbank Primary School. As you know, learning to read is one of the most important skills our children will develop. Reading is an important life skill and opens up many opportunities to learn. That's why I feel it's important to ensure that our teaching and learning of reading in Tweedbank is following an evidence-based approach with a high success rate of teaching children to read. It's very important to also acknowledge that it supports children with a dyslexic identification to read as well. Phonics International is evidence-based synthetics phonics programme. It's years of proven results in teaching children to read and spell. The programme uses a synthetic approach to teach phonics skills in a really logical progression, starting with basic letter signs, relationships, and building up to advanced phonic rules. This is taught in a very structured way which incorporates reading, spelling, writing, and comprehension from the very start, supporting children to understand the connection between phonics and other literacy skills. Although we have used synthetic phonics in the past, we don't feel that this has been as robust and as structured a process as it could perhaps have been. And we put a great deal of focus on reading words by sight rather than decoding words. As parents and carers, your involvement is critical in supporting your children to read. It's vital that we're all clear on the approach we're using so that we can successfully support reading at home and in school. Working together, we can ensure that your child becomes a successful and confident learner. I'm now going to hand you over to Mr. Graham, our lead teacher at Tweedbank, who is leading the implementation of Phonics International, and will both be available at the end to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is all brand new for us as well. This is our first time doing a live stream of a presentation to parents, so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully there'll not be any technical hiccups. You should see on your YouTube stream that there's a live chat function, and if you've got any questions that you want to ask us, pop them in there as we go through the presentation and we'll answer them at the end if the technology works in the way that it does. If you've got any other questions as well, you can obviously catch us in school and we can answer them as we go through. So what I'm now going to try and do is show you the presentation that we've got. So I'll go on the little screen over here and we'll show the presentation as we go. So we're going to start with this one here. And I'm going to actually ask Mrs. Aitchison, who's next to me, this one here. So the first one is to think about how we learned to read when we were at school. How did we learn to read and what is it that you can remember? So Mrs. Aitchison, what is it that you can remember from your time at school in terms of reading?
When I was at school, it was very much sight words in a baccy tin, and that was how I learned to read.
Nice. I don't think I had a baccy tin. I think it was more of a plastic tub that I had. But
definitely a baccy tin.
Sight words were definitely there. You had 10 words or so a week. You take them home, read them out, and then you'd eventually get a bank of words that you would be able to read quite confidently. However, this is not the approach that we're going with in school just now, and we'll teach you in the next kind of half hour, 40 minutes or so, what the approach is that we are going to be going for. So the English language, as we know, is a rich language. There are hundreds of thousands of words. There are roughly 1.2 million words that are English words in kind of general. We tend to use between 20 and 30,000 on a regular basis, with about 120,000 of them used within society. But we tend to use 20 to 30,000 on a very regular day-to-day basis. There are problems that arise with that, though, with written language for both reading and with spelling. And this is a combination of the complexity of the English language and the way that it can be taught as well. This influence of many languages over many years. So it's kind of transformed the English language through history. And we've got to the point where we are at just now. So as a result of all of that, our school has decided that from this year onwards, we are going to be using the Phonics International program. All the resources are available on phonicsinternational.com and they are freely available as well. So as a school, we've had to spend no money getting all these resources sorted. And if you want to access them as well, you can sign up for an account to see them that are there. So the synthetic phonics teaching principles come in the way of knowledge, skills, and how they are applied. So we first of all teach the knowledge of what's called the alphabetic code, and that is different from the alphabet, and you'll find out tonight exactly why that is the case. So there are a series of letters that are linked to the sounds of speech, and we'll be talking about sounds an awful lot tonight and going forward with your children's learning as well to see how that all plays its part. The 3 core skills that we're going to be teaching include sounding out and blending. That is for the reading aspect. We've got identifying sounds in words for the spelling, and they are a reversible code. So you use them to decode for reading. You start with the whole word and you look at the individual sounds. For spelling, you look at the individual sounds to build up the whole word. And then underpinning both of those aspects is the handwriting as well. And we'll talk a little bit towards the end about the new handwriting approach using digital technology as well. Then we're going to be applying those skills. So we're going to apply our growing phonics knowledge and skills to cumulative words, sentences, and text for reading, spelling, and writing. So that basically means that we start really small and we give them very short sounds and words, and then they get built up through the years that they're with us into sentences and whole texts. Then we apply that to reading and writing throughout the rest of our curriculum as well. So it's not just English where they're going to be needing these skills. They'll need them in, for example, social studies. If they're reading about history, they'll use those skills in there. This model that's on the screen now, I'm going to just make it larger for you so you can see it in full. And that's our simple view of reading model. And that is, in short, when you look at it from a horizontal perspective, it is what is the word? And from a vertical perspective, what does that word mean? Now, we are ultimately wanting all of our pupils to have really good word recognition and really good comprehension. That means that they know what the word is and they know what it means. But we don't have all of that for every learner in our school. Some of them may have poor word recognition, but are really good at understanding the words once they've been told what they are. Some children might have really good word recognition, but their comprehension might not be as strong. And some children may have both poor word recognition and poor comprehension. And it's our job as educators to try and get as many of our pupils up to that good word recognition and good comprehension part. Then we come to the alphabetic code and the alphabet and the alphabetic code and the differences between those two things. So we all know what the alphabet is that's watching tonight, but you might not know what the alphabetic code is. And we'll talk about that in the next few slides. So there is still a role for the alphabet as part of the Phonics International approach. They are obviously a bank of letter shapes. We all know what those shapes look like for each of the individual letters in both capital letter and lowercase. They are in alphabetical order and we relay those by letter names. So we will say A, B, C, D, all the way through to X, Y, Z. And then we've got capital letters. They're the same code for speech sound as the lowercase letters. So a capital A and a lowercase a in the alphabet is just always an A. However, with the alphabetic code, that's not the same. So we don't use letter names to teach reading or spelling. And a way to kind of think about that is if you were giving someone a box, for example, and you spelled that out using the letter names in the alphabet, you'd say B-O-X. If you blended those together and you said, can you pass me the B-O-X? Nobody would know what you're on about because that's not a word that we use. So we have to use the letter sounds in order to teach the way for reading and for spelling. And we'll go through that as we move on. So the alphabetic code, that is letters and letter groups that are code for the individual sounds in our speech. And we decode the letter symbols into sounds as the basis for reading. So for example, on the screen there, you can see that the printed word is soap. So we would break that down into 3 identifiable sounds, a S, an O, and a P sound. And then when you blend those sounds together, when you speed up the sounds that you've got there, it would turn into that word soap. Different from the alphabet, because you would be saying S-O-A-P, and if you asked for an S-A-O-P, nobody would know what you're on about. But if you say the blended sounds of S-O-P, you would be able to get there. So why is it synthetic phonics? Well, synthetic phonics, the word synthesizing, means to sound out and blend to read the unknown words. And that happens in 2 ways. It can happen aloud, and that might be what we do initially with our primary 1, primary 2 children, where they are sounding out words and they're saying the sounds aloud, and they are then able to blend them by hearing them. But through time, we'll get that little reading voice that we use in our minds, and we silently blend the words together. So we're taking all of the individual sounds, blending them with our reading voice in our brain, and then that is helping us along the way. Now, here's our first little, hopefully, bit of technology that works really well tonight. I'm going to add in a little video clip for you. There's a couple of videos that we're going to show tonight. This one is from a lady called Anne Glennie, who is a reading expert. She is very passionate about phonics and the synthetic phonics approach. And she's going to tell you a little bit just now about how how reading kind of works as a secondary skill, as in it's not a natural skill for human beings.
Now, in life, when we learn, some things are natural. Some things are easy or natural to learn because we would term them as being, biologically speaking, primary. So examples of things that are biologically primary are things like walking and talking. You will learn those naturally. You're primed for those as a human. And as long as someone is speaking to you and barring any other impediments, you will, of course, learn to walk and talk. And that will develop naturally, but in your own time as well. Both of my children were late walkers, but they got there in their own time. However, when it comes to reading, it's different. Reading is, biologically speaking, secondary. It's not natural. Reading is an invention. It's a human invention. We've actually been speaking for 50,000 years, but we've only been reading and writing for around 5,000 years. So in evolutionary terms, it's a fairly recent invention. So our brains aren't primed to read, they're not ready to read, and it's not something that's going to happen naturally. We have to teach children what the alphabet is, how it works, and how to use it. Other secondary examples would be learning to read music, for example, or learning to swim. Learning to swim, again, is secondary. It's not natural. That's why we don't throw P1s into the deep end of the swimming pool. That's why we give them swimming lessons.
Thank you, Charlotte, for that. I forgot to put myself off mute. Thank you for telling me. I'll go back a slide. Thank you. She said that you can't hear anything after the sound. I'm hoping that you can hear us now, Charlotte. I'll go back a couple of slides for you. So I was saying that the alphabetic code is a reversible code. So for spelling and for writing, we start with the sound and we encode to print. So with that, what we do is we start with the whole individual sounds, and we then build those up to make the whole word. For reading, it's the opposite way around. We start with the print and we decode to the sound. So it's the opposite way there. And what I was saying was that what we do now in Tweedbank with the Phonics International approach is we teach both the spelling and the reading at the same time in the same week for the same sounds that we're working with because of that reversible nature of it. With the phonics not just being for infants, the idea that I was talking about there was that what we do when we want to read an unknown Latin plant name is we take the whole word that is there, we then break it down into its individual sound parts, and then we try and read it out aloud. When I was at Sea Life Loch Lomond in the summer, there was some tropical fish that were there with very long Latin names with multi-syllable words, and I had to try and break them down so that I was able to give a wee go of trying to explain them to my children of what the names of those fish were. What do we do when we want to spell a new multi-syllable word? It's the same, but in reverse. So we take the individual syllables that we hear, we try and work out all the individual sounds, and then we say them aloud, basically, and then we spell it from there. And the reason that we do that in Tweedbank now is that we're not just doing phonics as a kind of primary 1, primary 2, maybe into primary 3 approach. We're doing it right the way through school, ELC up to primary 7. And that is ultimately to set children up for lifelong reading and spelling so that when we teach phonics rigorously and comprehensively, we can make them the best readers that we possibly can. We're not expecting them to deduce the code for themselves. We're not expecting them to guess what the sounds are. We're not trying to give them unknown words that they cannot decode. We're building up this code through time so that they're not having to guess, that they're able to make those sounds for themselves. And the way that we do that is we teach the reading and the spelling with this complex English alphabetic code. And we make no bones about it. There is a really complicated language to learn because it's not just teaching them 26 letters and 26 different sounds, because as you'll know, lots of those individual letters have multiple sounds that they make. How we do that is we start with the smallest sounds. So within any spoken word, these are called the phonemes, and that is the smallest individual sound that can be identified. So we use, when we're teaching this aspect of it, slash marks, and they're used to denote the individual sounds. So for example, we can hear the sound ah as in apple. We don't use the slash marks when we're writing the word, but we do use it to teach sounds or to teach words to break that down. But when we're putting the words into our jotters, into our writing pieces, we're not putting those slashes in. We're writing the words as whole, but when we're doing the teaching, we are using the slash marks. So there are about 44 phonemes in the English spoken language, but there are only 26 letters of the alphabet. And the reason for that is that we have some that are single letters, but some of them are groups of letters. And when there are groups of letters, when there's more than one letter that goes for the single sound, we call that a grapheme. So you can see there below, we've got our t, b, a, and e phonemes, but we've got graphemes for sh, e, n, etc. So there are 44 individual pieces of code that we need to teach children based on the 26 letters of the alphabet. And the graphemes are also spelling alternatives as well. So it could be that a certain sound is spelled in a different way depending on how the word is formed. For beginners, for our primary 1 and primary 2 learners, we teach the letters and the sounds of the code in a simple way at first. So we start with very basic single letters, and then we build it up through time. And we teach all the sounds and at least one way of spelling them. So for example, we might start with our late primary 1s, moving into primary 2, teaching them the E sound that's made with 2 letter E's. However, when we go through the school, we would then teach the further spelling alternatives, which are code for the same sound. So our double E sound can be made with the letters that are on the screen there. 2 E's, an E and an A, an E on its own, or an E with another consonant and then a further E at the end. So you can see there that we've got 4 different spelling alternatives for the one bit of code. We also, though, have pronunciation alternatives, and this is where, again, it becomes this really complex language. So some graphemes need to be decoded with different sounds depending on the actual word. So we then have pronunciation alternatives. So that letter A can be pronounced in different ways. So for example, in apple, it's an A. In angel, though, it's an A sound. In father, it's more of an R sound. And in want, it's more of an O sound. So we're having to teach children that even though it's the same letter in the word, it sounds different. And again, this is how it becomes a really complicated language to learn. Sometimes as well, though, we have to modify the pronunciation of the blended sounds that are there. They need to be tweaked or modified. Sometimes because of the way that we speak, our accents, for example. Sometimes just because of the way that the English language works. So, for example, the printed word there is cheese, but we recognize the graphemes might be ch, e, and s. But we don't actually pronounce the word cheese like cheese. We turn it into more of a z sound at the end. So what we're doing there is we're saying that the first sound is a ch, the second sound is the e, but the s, e pattern at the end leads to the modified pronunciation of cheese. So again, we're having to teach them that even though they're seeing a s and an e, you're pronouncing it like a z sound, which again adds that added layer of complexity to it. What we're ultimately trying to do, though, is create fearless and flexible readers and writers. But there's a certain reason as to why we need to do it in the earliest way that we possibly can. So in primary 1 to primary 3, there'll be a very large focus on it. And the reason for that is explained in this next video, which I'm going to share with Anne. And I promise I'll not mute myself afterwards.
Your reading brain really is remarkable when you think about it. On the screen here, what we can see is a side view of a skull, and down at the kind of bottom left-hand side of the brain, there's this little area, and we can see the wee black arrow pointing to it. This is called the visual word form area, or actually the easiest thing to call it is just simply a letterbox, because this is the area in your brain that enables you to read. This is the area that responds to printed words. It recognizes letters and letter strings, and it allows you to read. It's actually the neuroscientist, the French neuroscientist Stanislas Dehaene, who dubbed this visual word form area the letterbox, which I really like. So it's this small region in your brain, and in fact, you can scan pretty much any human, stick them in an MRI, and you will find this letterbox in the same place, give or take a millimetre. And actually, which I find astounding, this is regardless of language. So whether you speak French, German, Arabic, Italian, Mandarin, whatever it is, whatever that language is, if we scan you, we're still going to find that letterbox in the same place. But what's miraculous is this is not present at birth. The letterbox isn't there when you are born. It's something we must build.
So that is our job, to help to build that. So what we do is we encourage children to want to be accurate, but not to be afraid to make mistakes. So we're going to be using lots of scripts in our teaching. For example, that's an interesting word. Let me help you to spell that. Which sounds can you hear in the word? Well, what we need for this particular word is we need this spelling alternative. And here are some more words that are spelt that way. So these scripts will become part of our teaching through time so that children are aware of this complex code. The summary of that part there is that there are 3 complexities to the English alphabetic code. Those are that one sound can be represented by a combination of either 1, 2, 3, or even in some cases 4 letters. One sound can have many spelling alternatives, and one grapheme can be code for different sounds. So as a result of all this, it can take a good reader somewhere in the region of 3 years to become very fluent in reading because of this complex nature of the English language. So some of the examples of those complexities are shown here. So one sound being represented by 1, 2, 3, or 4 letters. So B being a 1 sound one, sh being a 2 sound, air being a 3 sound, and the A code, which is spelled E-I-G-H, being 4 letters in total. One sound being represented by more than one spelling alternative, and in some cases many. So the sound or, for example, as you can see there, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different ways that that or sound can be spelled in the English language. So it's really, really complex for children to know that. We'll teach them one way initially, and then as they move through our school, they'll be taught in various different other ways. One grapheme, one letter or letter group can also have different pronunciations. So for example, the EA sound that's listed there could be an E sound as in eat, an E sound as in bread, or an A sound as in break. Or it could be ear as in fear, bear, earth, and heart. So there's a slight change in all 4 ways that those words are pronounced. You then compare our complex English alphabetic code with some other languages, and they are much, much simpler. So for example, Spanish has half the number of speech sounds, around 23, and words are spelt with mainly one-to-one mapping. And that one-to-one mapping basically means that for every sound that is given, it is one letter. So it's a very easy language to learn as opposed to English. So you can learn Spanish in roughly a year from learning the code and for being a fluent reader. Finland is very similar. They can learn to read in a year as well there because they've got 26 letters in their alphabet and only 26 sounds. We've got 26 letters, 44 sounds, and around about 144 different spelling alternatives. So it is really complex, and we're making no bones about that. We're very upfront with it, with both you in these information sessions, teachers when we're training them too, but also our pupils as well. English is a really difficult language to learn, so it takes time to get there. So what we do is we move from the simple to the complex. So the planned systematic synthetic phonics program generally teaches that code from simple to complex. We start with a basic code where it's one sound for one letter, and then we delve it into the more complex code as we go. And as we do that, we use what's called an alphabetic code chart, which goes from the simple through to the more complex. And this is what we're going to talk a little bit more about just now. So the alphabetic code chart is simple and complex code knowledge, which is then taught at any time to anyone as required. And even though our primary 1 learners and our primary 2 learners won't be learning the complex code in their learning, we still provide them with the full alphabetic code chart so that they have that in case there's any words that they come across that they're interested in, they can then start to use their code chart with it. So we're going to have a wee think about this one just now, how many vowels and consonant sounds we can identify in the English language. So obviously we know that there are 5 vowels, but those vowels can make multiple different sounds. And the answer to that one there is 20 of them. So you can see them listed there. We've obviously got our a, e, o, and a, which is the simple code, but the more complex code can go for things like oi or ar or ur, for example, which is made in different ways. Then when we come to our consonant sounds, there are 24 additional ones with those, and some of which we combine with others to make further units of sound. You'll notice that one of the letters which isn't listed as a phoneme sound is the letter X, because we pronounce that as a X sound. So we say that this K plus S towards the bottom, that is the code for the letter X. So we won't be using the X with slash marks because we never say X in anything. We use a X sound for it. We've got oral blending and oral segmenting as well. So the sub-skill of reading is without the letters. So we might, for example, say, pull up the z, e, p of your k, o, t. So we're taking away the full word and we're asking pupils to decode the sounds that we give them to try to work out what those letters mean. The sub-skill of spelling without letters might be said that we say mat, that's spelled m-at, or spoon, which is spelled sp, u, n. And once they learn the code for them, rather than saying, for example, spoon is spelled S-P-O-O-N, we would say the code of sp, u, n to give them that opportunity to develop their learning. Each child is provided with a Phonics International alphabetic code chart. These are also displayed on classroom walls, so they become a very focal point of our work that we're doing. The spellings for each of these are shown across the rows, so each sound has the various different spellings towards the right-hand side, and then the sounds themselves are shown down the left-hand column. So the 44 sounds are down the left, and all the spelling alternatives are across towards the right. What we do for pupil versions of this is we give them a double-sided, laminated A4 document, which they carry with them for all their phonics lessons, so they're able to use that, and they can obviously use it in their writing as well if they're wanting to do that too. So this is a wee example of what it will look like. You can see the sounds down the left-hand side, s, a, t, e, but the various different ways that that can be spelled. For example, the s sound can be spelled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different ways in that example that's shown there. So obviously we've got one sound that can be spelled in various different ways. We also use these grapheme tiles and flashcards, so we'll be regularly given little mini assessments where we're just checking that pupils know what the sounds are, asking them to say the following sounds after they have learned them. We also have Say the Sounds posters as well, so these might be part of the booklets that we've been making up as well, and there may be little posters to go along with them to say that, for example, f as in feathers, or O as in plateau, spelt the way that's on the screen there. But obviously we wouldn't be giving our primary ones that code because that's more of the complex nature. So that would be more of a primary 6 or 7 phonics sound for them to learn. These are our essential activity skill sheets that we use in all classes. These give them the focus, letter and sound to start with. It gives them words that they can blend with as well. And then there's places where they can do writing practice and drawings if they wish to as well, just to give them that little extra opportunity to give them the chance to learn what these sounds are and where they may be used. We always fold these up as well. So we start with the sound and then we move the sheet down so that they're able to very easily see the different words that they come in first of all, and then have the practice to use them in their work as well. These are also going to be a really useful resource for us, both in school initially, and we'll go home in time. And these are our multi-purpose cumulative texts. And by cumulative, it means that they start very small in primary 1 and primary 2 with short, sharp sentences, and it moves on to full passages and paragraphs as they move up to primary 6 and 7. You can do various different skills with these sheets as well. You can do, for example, a grapheme search. So it might be that you were working on the or sound and you're looking for all of the words in the passage that have got an or in it. It might just be a simple decoding task. Can you read this passage to me? So we can see that they're able to read it aloud. Are you able to comprehend it? Each of these sheets come with questions. So we use questioning skills to ask them questions about what they've been learning to see if they've actually understood what's there. Because it's one thing being able to read it aloud. It's another being able to comprehend the words that are there. A bit of self-dictation as well. So we might say to them, can you find us the sentence that says a stork flies in the fort from the port? And they've got to try and find that for themselves. Converting it to joined writing. So we might provide them with the passage and ask them to handwrite it out using their joined writing or using the handwriting skills that they've been learning in class. Writing an extension sentence. So after they've read the passage in full, can you extend it further by continuing the story? What these passages do as well is they don't have a picture with them, because if we are truly teaching children to read, they don't need pictures to go with them because they are reading the text rather than potentially guessing the word from the illustrations. So it might be that the task that follows the reading is asking them to draw an illustration that would go alongside it. But initially, they don't see the picture. It's a really good way for them to comprehend what's happening. And it might be some teacher dictation as well, where we're reading something out to them and they're trying to rewrite it based on what they've previously read. All of these resources, as I say, come with the text, with a question bank as well based on it. They come with an initial introduction sheet as well, where you get words that may feature in it. So you can talk about the words before they read the full text. And then there are pictures as well, but we don't give them the picture at the start. They would read the passage, then maybe draw their own illustration and see how closely it matches to the one that is provided. But the really crucial point there to say that when we're teaching reading, we don't provide them with an illustration, because often children look at the picture and then try to guess what the text is as a result of looking at the picture. If they're doing that, they are guessing the words rather than reading the words. So this is some ways that we will be supporting children in this and how you can support them as well. First of all, telling the learner the code. So for example, in the word straight, if they were struggling to decode that A-I-G-H sound, we might say in this word, these letters, A-I-G-H, are code for A. So we're saying that those 4 letters make the code for A. So when you're decoding it, you would then go st, r, a, t, to then be able to sound it out. Alternatively, we might model the sounding out and the blending of the word to the learner. So we might do that for them. We might give them the sounds. We might let them hear them aloud so that they're able to blend them easier. Or simply, if the words are proven too difficult, we would tell the learner what it is. There's no point in them massively struggling and getting frustrated with their reading. Tell them what the word is, move on, and then you can always return to the word at a later point. With tricky words, such as the words that are introduced steadily throughout the program, again, it's better to tell the learner a really challenging word rather than letting them guess the word or using picture clues to work out what it is. So we introduce these throughout the program using the phonics program that is there, and rather than them guessing it, we would tell them if they are finding it too tricky. This one is on the slides. Now, we're going to be sharing the slides. There's a couple of QR codes that are up in school, so we'll put them out in the windows for tomorrow morning so that you're able to scan them outside your classes when you're dropping your children off. And we'll also post the links on our Facebook page as well. This is a great one for just finding out what those pure sounds are. So sometimes when children, when teachers even, and when parents start this Phonics International program, they sometimes mispronounce the sounds. So they may say the letter name, like L, for example, or they may say, for example, L, but we don't actually use that for a pure sound. It would be L would be the pure sound. So we're trying to encourage you as much as us to use these pure sounds. And there's a great link on YouTube, which is called Oxford Owl Pure Sounds. It only goes on for about 2 minutes, and you can learn all of the individual pure sounds that we're teaching. On the Oxford Owl website, oxfordowl.co.uk, there are over 250 free ebooks on there, and they are decodable text. So they start with the letters that they've learned, and they should be able to read the words based on what they've learned. So they start at level 1 with just a few letter sounds, and then they get more complex as it goes on. And they're free to download if you want to use those at home. But check with us in school to make sure that you know which letters they've been learning initially, so that you're able to teach them the words and the books in the right order. And finally, we've mentioned about handwriting. We've got a new approach with the Inspire Learning team, which I'm part of, and that is the Caligo handwriting app. It was used as a trial in 7 schools last session, and it's been extended now so that every single primary school in the Borders has access to it. It uses AI technology in a really powerful way, and you use a stylus pencil with it too. As a school, our parent council kindly bought for us 70 styluses last session, and we've been topped up with an additional 30 styluses this year from the Inspire Learning team. So we've got around about 100 styluses in school now. And what it does on the app is it allows children to form their letters after seeing a model showing them what to do. So it'll show them the way that the letter is formed on the screen. Then they take their stylus and they draw their version of it. But what it does is it analyzes every single stroke on their screen, and it gives them a little kind of point system which shows them how accurate they were. So if they were, for example, drawing the letter O the wrong way around, the app would recognize that and tell the pupil, you're doing it back to front, you need to do it this way around. And it would show them again and again until they've got the right motion for it. What Caligo has done, they've been around for a number of years. They've worked primarily in France, but not a lot more in England as well. And what they've said is that there's 2 advantages to using their app. First of all, letter formation becomes more neater. So we're expecting to see neater handwriting as a result of using the Caligo app. And that's not just neater handwriting on the app itself, but translated to paper and jotter as well. And our approach is probably going to be in school that we will have, when we're working with pupils, the iPad and the stylus, but next to it, a paper and pencil at the same time. And they'll be practicing on the screen and practicing off screen as well. So they're able to translate that from the screen to the paper. The other advantage of it is to do with what's called cognitive overload. And basically what that means is that quite a few children, when they're initially learning how to write by pencil and when they're learning how to sound out all the words as well, when they are writing a word, they will take a lot of their memory, their working memory that they've got in their brain, will be spent on forming the individual letters. So if they were writing a word like soap, like we had earlier, their brain power will be, how am I writing a letter S? Oh yeah, it looks like this. How am I writing a letter O? Oh, it looks like this. What Caligo does is, because they learn really quite quickly how the letters are formed very well, it takes away that cognitive overload and allows them to write the words quicker, write the letters quicker, because they're not needing to think, how am I writing an S? It's more about, right, how am I spelling the letter S, soap, because I've got these 4 sounds that I've got in front of me. So we've noticed from some of the case studies that in about 12 weeks of using Caligo, pupils can almost double the length of their writing because of that cognitive overload being taken away. They're not needing to spend their time thinking about the individual letters. They're just moving on to writing the actual words. What we've also done in school, and I'll just put this in full screen for you, is we've now got our handwriting policy. So we've now got these in classes, and that is the way that we are forming our letters. This is the way that we're going to be teaching how to write the letters. So that's in our lowercase. We've got it for our uppercase as well. And as a school, we've set for each individual letter how we are going to be teaching each letter to be spelled. So there's going to be a consistent approach across school that every class is learning how to handwrite in the same way. And we've also got a numeracy one as well. And if any of you want a copy of this, just let us know and we can email that out, or we'll post it onto our social media as well so that you guys have that too. Now, you'll be glad to know that that is the end of our time with you tonight. However, if any of you have got any questions that you want to ask us, we know that the chat's working because we got the message from Charlotte earlier on about the sound not working. So if any of you have got any questions that you want to ask, pop them into the chat just now and we can display them on our screen here, and then we can answer them for you if you so desire. But if you haven't got any questions, then massive thanks for coming along tonight. We hope that you found it informative. We've got our Meet the Teacher event next Wednesday afternoon, 2:15 until 3:15 in school. And we're going to be showcasing the Caligo app for parents at that. So if you want to come along to that and have a go at the app, take one of the styluses, take one of the iPads and have a little shot of it and check out your own handwriting and see if it matches the AI technology, you're welcome to do that. And if you want to have a look at our booklets as well that we've produced as part of the Phonics International approach, you're welcome to see that as well. But if you've any questions, fire them away. We'll be here for the next 5 minutes or so to answer any of those. But if not, then you're welcome to head off and enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. Anything you want to add, Lynn?
No, thank you very much for coming along.
And if at any point you want to ask us anything in school as well, just catch us. We're more than happy to answer any of that. And we'll do that with you too. So we've got our first week question there from Susan. Is the letter forming app available to ELC? It is, yes. Currently not just now because we've not got the shared iPads in school. But what we will have probably next week, they're currently getting built in Hoyk, is once they are in school, we will get them back for our ELC to primary 3 learners, and they will have opportunities to use the app in ELC. The app as well, what it also has is it has things like pattern tracing and mark making as well, so that they can learn to just use a stylus on an iPad screen, but to actually get that kind of letter, the pencil grip, with the tripod grip, so they can learn how to use that too. So that is something that we're really excited for our early years learners, including our nursery ones too. So Beth will get some use of it, Susan. We one there from Charlotte as well. Thank you for your comment. Really interested. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for telling us about the sound as well. I would never have known if I hadn't seen your comments. So I'd have been going through the rest of the presentation with you guys just having to read the words on the screen. So thanks for letting us know that too. If anyone else has got anything else, just pop it in the chat and we'll be happy to answer. You've used this before in Balmoral, isn't it, Mrs. A?
Yes, very successfully.
And when I was up there last week, I saw their Phonics International folders that they had as well. So I might have been going up to do some photocopying with the resources that they've got too. So it's something that is also, we've got a curriculum kind of modeling board. It's called the SBC Way, which is kind of launching this year and going to be further explored next year too. And they've listed Phonics International as part of the SBC Way. So it's very much part of the whole kind of conversation with it. We went there from Sarah. Emily was not for going to bed tonight, so I've missed this. Can I rewatch this later? The good news is yes. As soon as we end the stream, it'll be part of our YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on the live tab and it'll be there to watch as a replay. So it's there for anyone to watch at any point in the future. So if you've missed out because of Emily going to bed, Sarah, don't worry about it. You can rewatch it to your heart's content tonight or any other night going forward. Thank you for telling us though. Hope Emily's having a good sleep now. And I'm just glad that the technology's worked more than anything, because this is our very first time using a live on YouTube stream, and it's worked very well, other than me not unmuting myself earlier on. So that's great. And we can see that Sarah said that perfect, thank you, still going strong and running riot. Very good. Okay, we'll maybe keep it open for another minute or so, and then if there's no more questions, we'll head off. But as we say, if you want to share this live link with anyone from now on, it's there on our YouTube channel. Anyone can watch it. So if anyone hasn't attended the sessions in person or tonight, they're welcome to watch it from now on, and they'll have to just skip through that part when I'm not speaking. Right, I think we will end it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow at school, and we look forward to welcoming you in our school next Wednesday afternoon, 2:15 to 3:15. You can have a look around your children's classes, meet the teachers, and also find out more about this Phonics International program. Okay, thank you very much for watching.
Bye.
See you again.